The moment I cheated, my entire world shattered, not just for me, but for the woman I swore to protect. This isn't just a story about betrayal, it's an agonizing journey through regret, the deepest fight for redemption, and the ultimate test of whether love can truly conquer all. Prepare to feel every ounce of pain and hope. Welcome to Olu Beauty African Folktales channel. Here we tell you the way it is. Have you subscribed? If you haven't, please subscribe, like, comment, and share. Share it with your family and friends. And don't forget to touch the bell button so that you'll be notified each time we put out new video. Oh yeah, grab your popcorn, sit jeje, and enjoy yourself. Oh yeah, let's go there. They say a secret has weight. They are right. Mine was heavy, too heavy, and the day it fell, it crushed everything I loved. My name is Daniel, and this is the story of how one mistake nearly destroyed the life I spent 10 years building. The night I cheated, I didn't set out to betray my wife. It wasn't planned. It wasn't even something I thought I was capable of. But sometimes life takes you through storms that blur your sense of direction. And before you realize it, you've already drowned. My wife, Amaka, was my best friend. We met in church, young and full of dreams. She was the calm to my chaos, gentle, forgiving, patient. I used to tell people she was the reason I believed in God. We built a life together, simple but peaceful. A small house, steady jobs, and laughter that filled every room. But everything changed when her mother fell sick. Amaka became distant. The woman who used to smile at me across the dining table now stared blankly into her plate. Nights turned silent. Our bed grew cold. I tried to reach out. I did. But she had built a wall I couldn't climb. That's when Nena came in. She was a new colleague at work, lively, funny, confident, the kind of woman who made everyone feel seen. I remember the first time she called me Dan. No one else ever shortened my name like that. It sounded harmless at first, like a friendly nickname, but slowly it became something else. We started having lunch together, then long talks after work, then one night, after a company event, I drove her home. She asked me to come in for coffee, and I said yes. I shouldn't have. That night, I crossed a line I could never uncross. The moment it happened, regret hit me like lightning. I remember sitting on the edge of her bed afterward, hands shaking, wishing I could rewind time. Nena was quiet too. She didn't smile. She just said, "We both made a mistake." I went home that night and stood outside my house for 10 minutes, too ashamed to walk in. When I finally did, Amaka was asleep. She looked peaceful, and I hated myself for what I've done. I swore it was a one-time thing. I deleted Nena's number, avoided her at work, and tried to pretend it never happened. But guilt is a living thing. It doesn't die just because you ignore it. It follows you, whispers in your ear, and waits for the right moment to destroy you. 3 months later, it did. Amaka found out. I still don't know how. Maybe it was the late night messages, or maybe Nena told someone who told someone else. But that evening, when I walked through the door, I knew something was wrong. She was sitting in the living room, holding my phone. Her eyes were red, not from crying, but from anger. She didn't scream. She didn't throw anything. She just said quietly, "How long have you been lying to me, Daniel?" I froze. My throat went dry. I tried to speak, but no sound came out. And then she said something that made my chest tighten. I wasn't even going to check your phone. I just wanted to send a message to your mom. I wish I hadn't. Her voice broke. My heart did too. I confessed everything. I didn't see the point in lying. The moment the words left my mouth, I saw her body tremble like she'd just been struck. She stood there, breathing hard, and then said, "Do you know what hurts the most? It's not that you slept with her, it's that you choose her over me, even for one night." I tried to explain how I felt lonely, how I missed her, how it just happened, but my excuses only made it worse. She walked out that night. For 2 weeks, she stayed with her cousin. The silence in our house was unbearable. Every corner reminded me of her, her laughter, her scent, her voice saying good night. I barely slept. I barely ate. I kept calling, texting, begging. She ignored me. Then one night, around 2 a.m., I heard a knock at the door. It was her. Her eyes were swollen from crying, but her expression was calm, too calm. She said she came to pick up something. I offered to help, but she refused. As she packed, she asked, "Do you still talk to her?" I told her no, and it was the truth. She looked at me for a long moment and whispered and said, "You didn't just cheat on me, Daniel. You cheated on the version of me that believed in you. I don't know if I can ever get her back." She left that night again, but this time she didn't just take her things, she took my peace. A week later, her cousin called me and told me something that made my blood run cold. Amaka had quit her job and traveled out of town. No one knew where she went. She told her cousin, "Tell Daniel not to look for me. If he truly loves me, he will let me find myself or lose me trying." That was 2 months ago. Every day since then has been a battle between guilt and hope. I replayed that night over and over, trying to find the exact second I could have stopped myself. And then, just when I began to think she was gone for good, something unexpected happened. A letter arrived, no return address, just my name written in her handwriting. Inside were two lines, and they read, "You broke me, Daniel, but I'm not sure if I'm meant to heal with you or without you. You will find out soon, soon enough." I don't know what she means, but I can feel it. Something's coming. Maybe forgiveness, maybe revenge, maybe something I will never see coming. Because when love is wounded this deeply, it never dies quietly. When you hurt someone who truly loves you, you don't lose them all at once. You lose them slowly through their silence, their distance, and eventually their absence. Amaka's letter kept me awake for nights. I read it so many times that I memorized every word. The handwriting, the curve of her A, the way her pen dug into the paper when she wrote, "You broke me." Those words were heavier than any punishment I could ever receive. It had been 2 months since she left, and I had stopped hoping. I was just surviving. Work didn't matter. Food tasted like dust. Even my own reflection looked like a stranger's. Then one Saturday morning, I heard a knock on my door. At first, I ignored it. I'd gotten used to the quiet, but the knock came again, steady, patient, familiar. My chest tightened. When I opened the door, my heart nearly stopped. It was Amaka. She looked different. Not broken, not angry, just calm, dangerously calm. Her hair was shorter, her eyes sharper, her presence colder. I didn't know whether to hug her or fall to my knees before I could say a word. She spoke and said, "You said you wanted a chance to make things right, eh? I'm giving you one." I blinked and said, "What do you mean?" She stepped inside and looked around like she was visiting a stranger's house. Then she said, "I'm not here to move back in. I'm here for closure, for answers." I nodded quickly, desperately, and I said, "Ask me anything." But before she could, another knock came from the door. I frowned. "Were you expecting someone?" She said nothing. Her silence was my answer. I opened the door and my stomach twisted into knots. Standing there was Nena, the woman I betrayed Amaka with. She looked uncomfortable, holding a small envelope. She glanced at Amaka, then at me, and said quietly, "You told me she knew everything, Daniel, but clearly she didn't." My world tilted. What are you talking about? Amaka folded her arms, her gaze piercing. "Let her talk." Nena stepped forward, trembling slightly, and said, "Daniel, I wasn't going to say anything, but when Amaka reached out to me, I couldn't lie to her." I turned to my wife, stunned, and said, You reached out to her?" Amaka's lips twitched in something that wasn't quite a smile, and she said, "You think I'll just take your version of the truth?" Nena continued, her voice breaking. "That night wasn't the only time, Daniel. You told me it was, but you and I both knew it wasn't." The room went silent. I could hear my heartbeat pounding in my ears. I wanted to deny it, but the shame in my eyes betrayed me before my mouth could form the lie. Amaka didn't flinch. She just nodded slowly, like she had expected it all along. Then she said something I will never forget. And she said, "I forgave you, Daniel, long before ever you asked for it. But I didn't trust you. That's why I needed the truth, not to hurt you, but to set myself free." Tears bound my eyes. "Amaka, please, She cut me off and said, "No, listen. When I left, I went to a retreat. I wanted to find myself again, and I did. But while I was there, I realized something. Pain doesn't disappear when you run. It only quiets down until you face it." She took a step closer, her voice trembling, and she continued, "I came here today to tell you something that will change everything." I braced myself. She reached into her bag, pulled out a small white envelope, and handed it to me. Inside was a pregnancy test and a red positive. My vision blurred. You are pregnant?" She nodded slowly. "Yes, I found out 2 weeks before I left." I staggered back, my hands shaking. "Amaka, I don't know what to say." Her eyes locked on mine, and then she said the words that sent my heart crashing to the floor. And she said, "The baby isn't yours." I froze. The air left my lungs. Then I shouted and said, "What? What do you mean it's not mine?" She stared straight into me and said, "When I found out about your affair, I broke down. I wanted to numb the pain. One night, when I went to see an old friend for comfort, I made the same mistake you did." My mouth went dry. "Amaka, no, now, no, that's not." She interrupted quietly, her tone calm but cutting, and she said, "Now you know what it feels like." Silence filled the room. I could feel the world closing in on me. Shame, anger, heartbreak, disbelief, all crashing together inside me. She continued and said, "You taught me how betrayal feels, Daniel. I never planned to repay you, but maybe this was the only way I could understand the weight you carry." She took a deep breath and then continued, "I don't hate you. I'm not here for revenge. I just needed you to know. Love doesn't erase pain. Sometimes it becomes the reason for it." She turned to leave. I reached out to her, my voice cracking, and I said, "Amaka, please, I can't lose you like this. Please don't go." She paused at the door, her back to me, and she said, "You already lost me, Daniel. The moment you forgot what my heart sounded like when it broke. And then she walked away. The door clicked shut behind her, leaving me standing in the same silence I had created. But something about the way she said it, the way she didn't look back, told me this wasn't over. Because if she truly wanted to end it, she wouldn't have come back at all. No, there was something more behind that calmness, something she wasn't saying. And whatever it was, I had a feeling it was going to change both our lives forever. The night Amaka left again, I didn't sleep. I sat on the floor, surrounded by memories, her perfume on the couch, her teacup still on the table, her letter on the counter. Every corner of the house whispered her name. I kept replaying her words. You already lost me, Daniel. The moment you forgot what my heart sounded like when it broke. It echoed in my mind like a song I couldn't turn off. But there was something else she said, something that didn't sit right with me. The baby isn't yours. Those words haunted me, not because of the pain they caused, but because of the calmness in her voice when she said them. It didn't sound like revenge. It sounded like something else. A few days later, I went to her cousin's house. Her cousin, Tessa, opened the door and looked at me with tired eyes and said, Daniel, she sighed, haven't you done enough? I just needed to talk to her. I pleaded, please. Tessa hesitated, then said, she's not here. Where is she? She left for Abuja yesterday. She said she needed to close a chapter. I don't know what she meant. Abuja? I repeated, confused. Yes, Tessa said, but she didn't go alone. My stomach tightened. What do you mean she didn't go alone? Tessa looked away and said, she went with a man, a family friend, she said. His name is Pastor David. I froze. Pastor David, he was our marriage counselor, the one who had prayed with us through our darkest nights, the one I confided in after she left, the one I told everything to. A sudden wave of mercy hit me. I didn't want to believe it, but part of me, the guilty part, whispered that maybe this was karma coming full circle. For 2 days, I couldn't eat. I couldn't focus. I kept imagining them together, traveling, talking, maybe even smiling. Then, on the third day, my phone rang. It was Amaka. Her voice was soft, tired. Daniel, we need to talk, she said. My heart raced. Please, just tell me where you are. Abuja, I will send you the address. Come tomorrow, okay? And she hung up. The next day, I drove to Abuja. Every hour of that journey felt like walking barefoot over glass. When I finally arrived, she was sitting at an outdoor cafe, dressed in white. She looked peaceful, almost too peaceful. I sat down slowly, afraid to breathe wrong. Thank you for coming, she said. I nodded, unable to find words. She looked at me for a long moment before saying, you think I'm with David, don't you? I said nothing. My silence betrayed me. She gave a sad smile and said, you always were easy to read. Then she leaned back and sighed and said, David is my cousin, my late mother's nephew. We grew up together. He's been helping me with counseling, that's all. I exhaled. A mix of relief and embarrassment flooded me, and I said, I didn't know. You never asked, she said quietly. I looked down. Amaka, I am sorry. I thought she cut me off gently and said that I was doing to you what you did to me. I nodded. Her eyes softened and she said, that's what guilt does. It makes you see shadows where there are none. I swallowed hard, then said, then why did you say the baby isn't mine? She went quiet for a moment, then said, because at the time I wasn't sure. I didn't know if I could bring a child into a home filled with lies. I frowned. But you said, I said what I felt, not what I knew, she interrupted. When I found out I was pregnant, I panicked. I didn't know if I could handle being a mother with all that pain inside me. But then, after I left, I realized something. She looked up at me, eyes glistening. The baby is yours, Daniel. I got tested. I just couldn't tell you until I was ready to face you again. The world went still. I felt my chest tighten, my eyes sting, my hands tremble. I wanted to cry, but shame held my tears hostage. And I said, I don't deserve you, I whispered. She looked at me long and hard and then said, you don't, not yet, but you can still learn how to. Her words hit me like a slow knife, not to wound, but to heal through pain. She took a deep breath, then said, I am not ready to come back. Not yet. I need time. But I wanted you to know that this baby deserves a father who knows the value of honesty, not just words, but actions. I nodded, unable to speak. My throat felt heavy with regret. Then she reached across the table, placed her hand over mine, and whispered and said, Daniel, I may never forget what you did, but maybe, just maybe, one day I will forgive you completely. I felt my heart break and heal at the same time. I wanted to pull her close, but I didn't. I knew she needed space, and this time I had to let her go the right way. As she stood to leave, she said softly, if you truly love me, don't chase me, change for me. And then she walked away, not in anger this time, but in peace. That night, I sat in my car outside the cafe for a long time. The city lights blurred through my tears. For the first time, I didn't feel angry or desperate. I just felt humble. I realized that forgiveness isn't something you earn by begging, it's something you grow into by becoming better than who you were. And for the first time since my mistake, I decided to do exactly that because if there is even a small chance that Amaka will let me hold her again to hold our child, I will spend every breath proving I can be the man she deserves. But deep down, I know this isn't over because there is something Amaka hasn't told me yet. Something about the baby, something about that retreat, and I can feel it. A new truth is coming. One that could either complete our healing or reopen every wound. After that meeting in Abuja, something inside me changed. For months, I had been drowning in guilt, trying to fix everything at once. But that day, when Amaka looked me in the eye and said, if you truly love me, don't chase me, change for me. It hit me like lightning. She didn't want promises, she wanted proof. So I went back home to Lagos alone but with a new kind of resolve. I started therapy. I joined a men's fellowship group at church. I stopped running from the truth and began confronting it head on. I even sent Nena a message, not to rekindle anything, but to apologize and finally close that chapter for good. She didn't reply, but it didn't matter. I had said what needed to be said. Days turned to weeks, weeks into months. The silence from Amaka was deafening, but I didn't push. For the first time, I was learning how to wait, not out of fear, but out of respect. Then, one morning, almost 6 months later, I received a call that made my blood run cold. It was Tessa, Amaka's cousin. Her voice trembled and she said, Daniel, it's Amaka. Oh, she's in the hospital. I dropped everything and drove straight to Abuja, my hands shaking the whole way. When I arrived, I saw her lying in the hospital bed, pale, fragile, tubes in her arm. My heart shattered. The doctor explained she had collapsed at her retreat center, severe dehydration and fatigue. But it wasn't just that. Stress has taken a dangerous toll on her. When I walked into the room, she was half asleep. But the moment she opened her eyes and saw me, tears welled up in them, and she said, Daniel, she whispered weakly. I rushed to her side, holding her hand. I'm here, love. I'm right here. She blinked slowly, whispering, and said, You came? I smiled through my tears and said, I never left, Amaka. Not really. She smiled faintly, then whispered something that sent a chill through me, and she said, I thought I was going to die. Don't say that, I begged, squeezing her hand. She turned her head weakly and said, You don't understand. I saw things, Daniel. I saw him. I frowned. Who? Her voice trembled. Our baby, she said. My breath caught. Her eyes filled with tears as she continued. I don't know if it was real or if I was dreaming, but I saw a little boy. He looked at me and said, Mommy, stop crying. Daddy still loves you. She broke down. I did too. In that moment, everything that had been broken between us seemed small, insignificant compared to the weight of that love that still connected us, even through loss. When she recovered enough to speak clearly, she told me everything. During her retreat, she had gone through a counseling program for women dealing with betrayal and grief. One night, overwhelmed by everything, she wandered alone to a quiet cliffside near the retreat center. She had almost slipped, almost fallen, but a stranger caught her just in time. That stranger was a widower named Samuel, who had lost his wife in a car accident. He became her friend, her listener, her source of calm. He had helped her through her darkest days. But what she didn't tell me until now was that Samuel had died suddenly of a heart attack 2 months after she met him. The news broke her all over again. But she said that after losing him, she realized something powerful. Love isn't about who never hurts you, Daniel. It's about who chooses to stay and heal with you after the hurt, she said. She looked at me then, really looked at me, and whispered and said, That's why I called you that day, because I finally understood that running from you wasn't healing, it was hiding. I broke down completely. All my guilt, all my pride, all the years of pretending I was in control, they crumbled in that room. I fell to my knees beside her bed and said the only words that truly mattered. Amaka, I am sorry I failed you. I failed our marriage. I failed our love. But please, let me try again. Let me earn you back, I said. Tears streamed down her face. She reached out, touched my cheek, and said softly, I never stopped loving you, Daniel. I just stopped recognizing you. That moment, it was the closest thing to forgiveness I had ever felt. Not full, not final, but real. The kind that takes root slowly, like dawn breaking after a long night. After she was discharged, I stayed in Abuja for a while. I cooked for her, helped her walk, prayed with her. Sometimes she laughed, sometimes she cried, sometimes we said nothing at all, just sat in silence. And somehow that silence started to feel like peace again. One evening, as we watched the sunset from her balcony, she said something that melted me completely. And she said, Do you know what hurts the most, Daniel? It's not what you did. It's that I loved you so deeply, even after you did it. And maybe that's what will heal us too. I took her hand gently and said, Then let that love guide me back home. She smiled faintly and said, Maybe it will. Now, as I sit beside her, her belly slowly rounding with our child, I've realized something profound. Forgiveness isn't a moment, it's a journey. And redemption isn't found in begging, it's built in quiet, consistent love. But deep down, I can tell she still hasn't told me everything. Sometimes she stares into space, holding her stomach, whispering something softly. Once I caught the words, "You will be proud of him." When I asked what she meant, she just smiled and said, "You will understand soon." And something in her eyes, calm, mysterious, full of light, tells me that there is one more secret left to uncover. Not one born of betrayal this time, but of grace. The rain started the night Amaka went into labor. It wasn't the gentle kind that soothes the soul. It was fierce, thunder rolling like an angry drum, lightning tearing through the sky. I remember pacing the hospital corridor, my hands trembling, my heart pounding harder than it ever had before. Each cry that echoed from the delivery room tore through me like glass. It wasn't just fear, it was memory. The memory of the night she had cried for me when I broke her trust. And now she was crying again, only this time she was fighting for our future. Hours passed. Then the doctor came out, his expression unreadable, and he said, "Mr. Daniel, your wife is strong," he said, "but there is a complication. The baby's heartbeat is dropping. We may need to operate." I felt my knees weaken. The man I had been a year ago, proud, careless, selfish, would have panicked. But that night, I fell to my knees in the hospital chapel and prayed. I begged God not to take her, not after everything, not when we had just begun to find our way back. I prayed until my voice broke, until tears soaked the floor beneath me. Then silence. The rain stopped, and a nurse rushed in, breathless, her eyes shining, and she said, "She's okay, she's fine. You have a baby boy." I don't remember running. I just remember being there beside her. Amaka lay weak but smiling, her eyes glistening with tears, and in her arms, our son, tiny, fragile, perfect. When she placed him in my hands, I felt something shift inside me, something I can't fully explain. It wasn't just joy, it was redemption in human form. "Daniel," she whispered softly, "meet our miracle." I looked down at the little face that resembled both of us, and then I saw it. Around his tiny wrist was a tiny silver bracelet engraved with one word, "Grace." I looked up at her, confused. She smiled faintly and said, "That's his name, Grace." I frowned. I tried to understand, and then she told me the final secret. During her time at the retreat, when she met Samuel, the widower who helped her heal, he had given her that bracelet. He told her, saying, "When you are ready to forgive, wear this on your child's wrist. Let it remind you that forgiveness is never earned, it's given." She paused, her voice trembling, and she continued, "I kept it all this time, Daniel, not as a memory of another man, but as a promise to myself that if I ever found the strength to forgive you, I will name our child after that grace." Tears streamed down my face. I wanted to speak, but my voice failed me. She reached out, cupping my cheek with her trembling hand, and said, "You see, Daniel, the weight of a secret can destroy love, but the weight of grace can rebuild it." In that moment, I realized what true forgiveness looked like. It wasn't about forgetting the pain or pretending it never happened. It was about choosing love in spite of the pain. Amaka didn't just forgive me, she redeemed me. It's been 2 years since that time. Our son Grace is learning to walk now, clumsy and full of laughter. Every time I see him stumble, get up and keep going. I see us. Because that's what love is. Really, two imperfect people falling, rising, and choosing each other again. Amaka and I still have scars, but they are no longer open wounds. They are reminders of how far we've come. Some nights, when the house is quiet, I still whisper to her, I don't deserve you. And she always smiles and says, maybe not, but grace isn't about deserving. If you ask me what I've learned from all this, I'll say the true test of love isn't in how perfect we are, it's in how we forgive, rebuild, and choose to stay even after the storm. Because sometimes God doesn't punish us with the consequences of our mistakes, He redeems us through the people who love us enough to stay. And that's what Amaka did. She stayed, she healed me, she taught me that even the heaviest secret can become the seed of a second chance if love chooses to forgive. Thank you for watching. This is where our story ends. But before we end it, let's look into our moral lessons. Secrets may destroy trust, but truth can rebuild love. Forgiveness isn't weakness, it's strength in its purest form. Love is not about perfection, it's about choosing each other despite the flaws. Redemption begins where pride ends. Grace can turn the worst mistake into a new beginning. In conclusion, sometimes the greatest act of love is forgiveness, and sometimes grace doesn't erase our scars. It teaches us to live beautifully with them. This concludes our story. Thank you once again for watching. Please, if this story touched your heart, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Share it with someone who believes in second chances and subscribe for more powerful true life stories that reminds us love always wins in the end. And touch the bell button so that you'll be notified each time we put out new video. Leave your comments in the comment section. We love reading your thoughts. Tell us how you feel about this story. God bless you all. Love you. Bye bye. Mwah.